So yeah, technical difficulties aside, that always happens. Thanks for everyone for being here. So I think we are one of the longest running pediatric tech programs. We've been around for about 25 years, so it's pretty long. So I'm here to talk about how we've changed over the years and what caused us to change and or helped us to change. So I thought it was pretty clever to call it the evolution of CHIMP because CHIMP is the name of our program, the Child and Youth Interactive Media Program. So we're at the Alberta Children's Hospital, which is in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. And it's a fully donor-funded program through our Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. So we have a dedicated foundation for our hospital. And I started as a volunteer in this program. So that was in 2001. So that is my legit volunteer ID badge that I dug up. And I just lucked out. I was doing my undergrad in computer science at the University of Calgary. And I just wanted to come and hang out with kids and play with them and have fun because I knew, it wasn't fun to be in the hospital. And when I came to be a volunteer, there was a volunteer orientation. They said, what do you want to do? Be in the playroom or run bingo, or you can play computer games with kids. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that. I totally want to do that. And so I haven't left ever since. So after I graduated, I was able to get a job here as a therapy assistant in the same program. It was during the software crash, so I couldn't get a programming job, and really I was not a good programmer anyways. So that worked out in my favor as well. And shortly after being a therapy assistant, I ended up being the coordinator of the program because the person who initially started the program ended up going on mat leave and had to take an LOA and wasn't able to come back for other reasons. So I was able to be the coordinator. So from 2005 till now. So I've been in part of this program since 2001 in some capacity or another. So that's about 21 years now. And I was also a little more about my education. I have a bit of a bio-sci background as well. So the program started in about 1997, I think. I was trying to dig through some of the old documentation, some of the old info that we had, and the furthest back I could find was about 1997, and it was pretty small. It started in child life. The person who started the program was a child life specialist, and it was just a couple of laptops were donated to the hospital, and she wanted to incorporate them into their play, into their distraction, into what they did with the kids. So back then, there was no high-speed internet. It was all dial-up in the hospital. They would play CD-ROM games, if anyone remembers those. Games were just installed with a disc, and people were, learning how to use email, and there was no Google, no social media, none of that. So it's pretty limited what they were doing, but it was still such a novelty because it was really new. So it did have quite an interest from a lot of the kids. So when I started, how much staff that were here was a full-time coordinator and a 0.5 therapy assistant. So that was me eventually. So it was about one and a half people in the program. And there were some volunteers, and they would just take out the laptops, bring them around to the patients. And this is one of our volunteers in the picture here. See the patients at the bedside and just hang out with them one-on-one for socialization, distraction, things like that. There were also a few computer stations around the hospital too that were set up because, again, people didn't have smartphones. You just didn't have all these devices back then. So we just had computer stations set up around the hospital so that families could access email or communicate with their families or just like sign into work or anything like that while their kids were here or at an appointment. And then we also did photo booths for special events. So when we'd have like Christmas parties or Easter parties, we would take pictures of the kids and print them out right there so they would have a copy of it as a keepsake to bring with them. So looking back at all the times that we did change, these were some of the triggers I noticed. So there were external triggers and internal triggers. So a lot of the external ones were things that we didn't have control over. So they were things either from the community or organizational wide that caused us to change or helped us to change. So a big thing is funding and grants and donations. So that's through our foundation, and our foundation connects with all the other charities to help fund our program, including Child's Play. And another big one that we encountered was a hospital move. So our entire hospital moved. So I'll talk about that later. And being a public health system, because that's how it is here, is there's often reorganization to help efficiencies, or depending on funding from the government, things like that. There's always reorganization. Every few years, it seems there's some sort of reorganization within healthcare here. What everyone else has gone through is the pandemic, so we've all gone through that, and just technology changes. And over time, like, technology just changes exponentially. So it was slow to start when I started, but in the past few years, it just new and greater things just keep getting added all the time. And the internal changes are the things that we can control within our own program. So that's staffing. So that's who is in our program and who is working in our program, the type of equipment that we do buy with the funding that we have, and the type of services that we decide to run with the equipment and with the staffing that we have. So those are things that we can control. So even while we changed over the years, the title of the program had changed. So it started off with Child Life. So it was the Child Life Computer Program, because it was just laptops and computers, and that was it. And then with the reorg change, and it went away from Child Life, it became the Child Health Computer Program. And over time, it wasn't just computers. We added so much more. It was the Child Health Computer and Technology Program. And then that was such a mouthful. So we wanted to come up with an acronym that was fun. And that's why now it's CHIMP. And we figured the name CHIMP has more longevity, because the main piece of that is the interactive media part. So it's not just here, we're just going to give you a piece of device and we're off. It's the interactive part that's the most important of what we do. And media, really, it means any type of device. So we're hoping that this name has more longevity to it than our past names. So the reorganization was one of the bigger factors in changing our program. So how we moved from Child Life was back in about 2003. So it was right before I started. And back then, Child Life was one department, but it got split off to be program-based. So then each of the Child Life specialists was assigned to a different unit. But our program, since we service the entire hospital, we went under the Family and Community Resource Center. So that's what we're a part of now. We're still a part of that now. So that was a big change for us. And another big change was our health region used to just be Calgary. So it just was our city. But it became province-wide, so it became Alberta Health Services. So there was a lot of changes there with management, consolidating things across the province. So that was a big change for us too. And so there's varying degrees, and every time we get different leadership changes, it changes how we collaborate with other team members, because there's a bit of reorganization within your team. There's more interdisciplinary work. And I think it's also the objective of leadership and their vision and mission, and how we change because of that, because where they want to direct where our program goes, and what's important as their vision and mission as well. So the next big trigger of change was our hospital move. So this was about 2006. So evidently this year is actually the Alberta Children's Hospital 100th year birthday. So we've been around for 100 years, but I think this is about our fifth building that we're in. So the one on the left was the building I started working in. So 2006, we moved the entire hospital, fully functioning, over to the new hospital, which is the colorful one on the right that looks like a giant Lego building. So with that, the timing of the hospital move, it meant that we got more funding. So we were able to add so many more things, because it was such a big thing in our city. So there was a lot of grants, there's a lot of funding, a lot of corporations wanted to help out and be involved and get us, newer and greater things. So that was a really big deciding factor in getting us to grow and change. So some of the things we were able to start up once we moved our hospital was we finally got Wi-Fi. Not right away, but we finally did get Wi-Fi. And even now, 16 years later, our public Wi-Fi is not that great. But at least we have it, and it's free. And we were able to upgrade a lot of our laptops, get brand new laptops, more computer stations, newer computers. And then that's when we changed to the child health and technology program, because it wasn't just computers anymore. That's when we started incorporating video games under our program as well, because again, it was just assigned to the unit. No one really took care of them. It was just a cart in the corner and it wasn't maintained. So we assumed responsibility for those because, again, we had a big grant. Microsoft was involved. We got a big donation. So we were involved in installing all those systems around the hospital. So we assumed all the video gaming devices in the hospital. So that also meant that we started running our own group programs. So we started running gaming night. So a funny story about gaming night. So when we started, Rock Band was really popular. So we did Rock Band for gaming night, and there was this one patient. She was super excited. She was so excited to play Rock Band, and she wanted me to sing. She's like, "Lynn, you got to sing." I said, "No, I don't. I don't sing. I really want to sing." She's like, "Lynn, come on, please do it for me. Please just sing." Like, okay, fine. I'm doing it just for you, but I do not sing in public. So, like, no lie. 2 lines into the song, she throws up. So I'm the only one that can say I make children throw up with my singing. So so yeah, that's my excuse to never ever have to sing in public. She was totally fine. Don't worry. We cleaned her up, took her back to the unit. She came back and played more Rock Band. But that's kind of one of my favorite stories about Rock Band. Going back now, we also have got more staffing once we moved to the new hospital because, again, with the funding, so we were able to get another full-time staff. So that's when our technologists jumped on board. So we were getting more staff to be able to service all these newer areas, bigger areas. And we also got more physical space. So at the old hospital, we were with the child life team. We sat really close to the child life team. And here, all the child life specialists got split up and they were sitting on all their separate units. And we had our own department, our physical space in the Family and Community Resource Center, because at the old hospital, we were all split up. So here we were all together, and we actually got a big storage space for all of our stuff, because you guys know how much stuff we all have and how big all of our stuff is. I cleaned up my space today for the presentation, but usually there's like 3 carts behind me. So it was really nice to just have all that extra space, because I think I was in a literal closet at the old hospital. I think it was a closet that they turned into an office for me. So again, with staffing, so management changes, we kind of talked about that. So team changes too. As you guys probably all know, what we do is not a discipline that you can learn in university or go to school for. We all come from very unique, different backgrounds. So we all have different skill sets that we bring to the table, and we all have different experiences and all have different interests. So I think that really changes the dynamic of the team, and that changes the service delivery that we can offer, because we do have different interests. And I try, within our team, I try to encourage everyone's differences and do things, allow that person to do things that are of interest to them and that they're passionate about, because that's how you get passionate people doing great work, as well as still continuing to be able to do all the stuff that we need to do within our program. So I think that really helps with the change of the program and the direction of the program as well. And as you guys all know as well, there's a huge learning curve with this position. So anyone that just jumps in, it's not just like, hey, this is how you do this and this and this. It's just, there's just so much like random nuances that I know you're all aware of. But the awesome thing about having new people come in is they have like fresh and new ideas. That's the thing with me being here so long is, yeah, this is how I've always done things, and this is how it should be done, until someone comes in and is like, but why do you do it like this, and why don't you do it this way? And so it's always great to have those fresh new ideas, and it makes you rethink what you do and why you're doing it. And it really helps with our volunteers. We keep getting new, fresh volunteers, and they bring in a lot of those new ideas as well. So right now we're at a full-time coordinator, so that's me, and then a full-time media producer, which is Aileen. I think you guys have heard her name kicking around. And we finally got our new 0.5 game. We're calling him our game tech specialist, but he was actually one of our volunteers. So he's been here for about a month. So he's been great. And we have 7 awesome volunteers on our team right now too. So our full capacity for volunteers is ideally 12. We lost a few because of the pandemic. So we would like 12, 2 per day, and then 2 for gaming night once we can start that again. So yeah, so funding donations, those are really big deciding factors in us being able to overhaul a lot of stuff, because without the funding donations, we can't replace a lot of things. You get bits here and there that we can add. So we're very fortunate that we do have a lot of community support from different corporations and just different individuals in the community that fundraise for us and that give us large grants. So we're able to do these big upgrades because of those, as well as gift in kind donations. So those are just individual things that come in from people in the community or corporations in the community, and that really helps us to start something new, to spark a new idea, to spark a new service. Just like getting that Sphero from last year's conference, we didn't think about going into the whole STEAM and programming side of things, but we're like, no, now that we have this, let's do that for some of the kids that are interested in programming and interested in robotics and things like that. And then we also do pilot projects. So sometimes, a pilot project, if it's technology related, will come through us. And one of the big things that we're responsible for are the video interpreter machines. So they're the interpreter on wheels. So you get a live person that will do medical interpretation for, I think, 40 different languages in video in live time. So that's part of our services as well. So some of the old carts versus the new cart. So that was the old cart at the old hospital with the original Xbox and like whatever, a 6-inch TV, I think that's on there. And then that's our super big gaming cart that our volunteer takes around to the patient. So it has PS5 and a Switch and all the newer stuff on there. So I won't stay on pandemic too long because I think we've all went through the same challenges during the pandemic. So there was a lot of service removal and a lot of doing something we used to do in a new way, and then now reintroducing a lot of those services again with modifications or some hybrid of what we were doing before with the online and things like that. So I'll kind of skip through that quickly. So this is not an accurate representation, but it was just good to have a visual. And I was just thinking every time we do have a big growth in equipment, we have a growth in service as well, which really makes sense, right? You get new stuff, you're gonna use it in a new way and service the population in a new way. But there's also a dip because you get new stuff, you have to get rid of some old stuff because we would just run out of space and things become obsolete. So there's a little dip in some of the services too, but it kind of goes back up again. And over time, it just seems that we keep adding more and more onto our plate and adding more and more services just because we just want to keep adding more and more stuff to service our families as much and as as well as possible. But there are things to consider when we are adding new services and adding new equipment. Is this change an addition? Is it a value add to the patient? Is it just something cool that you want to do? Of course, we want to do fun and cool things, but I think to be to have that clinical side of things and to be impactful, we need to think about how is this a service add to the patients and families, and where's the therapeutic component in all of this, and then what is your capacity, because if most of you, I think you guys are a lot like us, we just keep saying yes and wanting to keep doing more, but eventually your cup overflows and there's only so much you can take on. So you have to remove some things or you have to replace some things, or something's obsolete. You have to kind of make those decisions, and it's okay to make those decisions. It's okay to say no to some things sometimes, or to replace things, and that you only have so much you can do, and then just making those decisions in one thing over another. It's like when all the movement games came out, it was the Wii and then the Kinect. And we leaned more towards the Wii than the Kinect, even though the Kinect was pretty cool, was because it was a broader age range that it would cover. So a lot of younger kids were able to play the Wii, like Wii Sports, and the older kids were fine with playing it too. and the Connect didn't work if you were in bed or if you were in a wheelchair, or so it didn't. It just, the camera wouldn't pick it up at all. And we tried all that. We tried sitting in a chair. We tried sitting in bed, and we're like, the Wii is just easier. So and it just worked better, and that's why we kind of stuck with that. And it would have been cool to have the Connect, but therapeutically and the value add, it didn't perform the same. So it's just things like that to keep in mind. And as you grow and as you add more things, you have to think of ways to be more efficient in how you set things up or how you do things. And it could be, as easy as just like having certain automated things done, or using different software to just like create images of things, just somehow to be more efficient so that you can just uh, work smartly, or whatever the saying is. I can't remember. And then the very important thing that Aileen has taught me a lot is to track what I have done, or we have done, or you have done, because I was very bad at that. And I think it's, being here for so long, and as the program grows, you kind of just, move along as it goes, and you don't write all these things down. And it's not until someone new comes in and they're like, how do you do this? And how do you do this? And how do you do this? And you're like, it's all just in my brain. And she's like, we need to get this stuff out of your brain and on paper, because it's just too much stuff and it's just really disorganized. So she has been really good at getting me to document, even just how I go about doing something, just instructions or screenshots of like, this is how you set this up. And it makes sense, because the next time that someone does it, it's way more efficient than like, how did I do that? Or what did I do this time? And inventorying everything and tracking everything, and even coming up with like a naming system for all of the equipment, and just, yeah, where they're located, things like that. Start from the beginning so that you're not backtracking and finding where all this stuff is. As well as just tracking why you did a certain thing the way you did, is really helpful. And then just to have those stats for future funding, and for whoever else is coming in after you, or just, we have to write reports to our foundation, so it's important for us to track those things too. So I think basically tracking like as much stuff as you can and documenting as stuff as you can. I'm forgetting to go through my notes. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. So there's certain constants though throughout all this change and all this growth, and it's the purpose of our program. It's why we do what we do, and it's you guys all know this too. It's normalization, distraction. We're here to provide the support for the patients. We're making it fun, and there's a whole therapeutic component to all of that. And we're socializing. We're connecting with them. When we moved to the new hospital, they didn't have as many shared rooms as we did at the old hospital. So a lot of the kids were more isolated here, more single bedrooms, because IP and infection prevention control saw that we're moving in the direction where there was more infectious diseases and things like that. And it was too difficult if a kid became isolated, he was in a shared room, to move all the other kids around. So these kids are very socially isolated. They don't make friends with their roommates anymore like they used to. So, having volunteers and having us come in to spend this time with them is really important to these kids. And then constantly advocating for our patients and families for the services that we have here. And it's for things like, for us to have Wi-Fi. They didn't put Wi-Fi in when we moved to a brand new hospital, which was totally ridiculous. So I went and advocated, talked to whoever I could to get Wi-Fi in here, public internet. We can't do dial-up in this like brand new state-of-the-art hospital. It was just like sad and embarrassing and just not functional. Or just, when they want families to pay for TV and things like that, we always try to advocate that creates like more disparity between families, the families that can afford to have that versus the families that can't. So I think, it's important for us to be the voice of the patients and families when we're looking to grow, and just to advocate on their behalf. I wasn't going to talk about too much of the stuff, but here is some of the stuff that we do have in terms of equipment here in our program. So we have about 15 laptops. We have tons of consoles, so old and new. I think we're at about over 200. I'm not totally sure. Lots of different gaming carts around the hospital. So it's the big cart, the go karts we get, the Starlight Fun Center carts we get. We also have a few just empty carts for when patients bring in their own systems and they can hook it up to a bigger TV. iPads that we have, mostly for clinicians to use with patients. A few to lend out in day surgery and emerge. Virtual reality, we have 6 headsets, and the virtual remote interpreters, which is the those interpreter on wheels things. And the services that we offer is distraction support for families, psychosocial distraction, and tech support as well. When someone can't get onto Wi-Fi or can't get their iPad working, we'll help out with that as well. We do a lot of collaboration, co-facilitating with other disciplines. So kind of like Marty and David's presentation, here's one of our physiotherapists doing ring fit with one of the kiddos in their room. So really convenient, just bring the little screen in and they can just get some movement in while they're in the hospital. So we're trying to get people to be more comfortable with technology and incorporate it into their practice here. So we work with a lot of other disciplines too, including PTs and OTs and speech language pathologists and child life and music therapists. So just a lot of disciplines across the board. We have volunteers every weekday. We're actually also in charge of, well, Aileen is, of our website for our Family and Community Resource Center. We do a lot of photos for holidays or for patient milestones. So if it's a birthday they're celebrating in hospital, or their last BMT or something, or sorry, last chemo or something like that, we'll do a photo to commemorate that. So a little photo shoot for them. And then we still do those for holidays and special events. And we help out with various summer camps in the hospital that incorporate gaming as well. And that's things like we do a photo camp with the mental health kids in the summer, and we do different movement camps with perinatal stroke patients, things like that. So a few things that kind of got affected with COVID, but we're slowly bringing them back, is there's less computer stations around the hospital. We brought a couple of those back. We're starting our group programs again. So we're back in day treatment mental health. We'll be starting inpatient mental health pretty soon. We do rec therapy in our rehab school. So we actually have a rehab school here in the hospital, and hopefully we'll be able to do hospital-wide gaming night soon, where we get kids from all the other inpatient units into gaming night and playing some fun games on the big screen. And I just had to show off some of our photo booth photos because we're pretty proud of them, but hopefully we can do those again. So for now, we have more of the fully digital photo booth. So the wanted poster of that little baby there is the Calgary Stampede is a pretty big event here. So it's everyone dresses like a cowboy for a whole week. So we do wanted posters, and Aileen's like super awesome with her digital editing and Photoshop. So she did a photo shoot of this little guy. We did it for the whole, all of the oncology kids. So I had to share that because it was just too adorable. And actually, I guess I didn't talk about areas that we cover, but quickly, so all inpatient units, we also have outpatient ambulatory care units that we also support. We have our Rotary Flames House, which is our palliative care and hospice center across the street. We also support them. And we have our Gordon Townsend School, which is our rehab school within the hospital. And we do a little bit of support for our child development center across the street as well. So some of our future plans is to carry on with more STEAM type activities. So just incorporating all these gaming adjacent type of activities. So ClickBot and Lego Boost, we want to get that going. We have our telepresence robot, so we want to get that going as well. And just building more capacity, getting people more comfortable with using VR around the hospital. So I tried to talk as fast as I could because I think last time I went over when I did this during the knowledge share. So here's my contact information, and I think I ended almost right on time. And we can open it up to questions now. Or I have to go through this list.
You did an amazing job. You covered a ton of ground, a few decades worth, I think.
Yeah.
One of the originals. Thank you so much for telling us about your journey and how it all came about. And I know, I don't know if you had your chat open, but you sort of sparked an avalanche of conversation on multiple different points, and everything from equipment to procedures to storage, which I was going to comment in the chat that storage itself could be a topic probably for a full day, next year.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of questions I think we should get to before we let you go, which is how many beds does CHIMP service?
I think I can't remember. I think we're about 120, 130 around there. We have our NICU, so we don't service there. And yeah, so I think it's about 130. We have 4 inpatient units, and then we also have our PICU, our mental health inpatient unit, and emergency on top of that as well.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And every organization is so different, and I think people just are a little bit curious as to how you found. Eric asks, did you run into any issues with your facility expecting these services to fall under the child life department? And then quickly followed up by Luann League says, just curious, does your child life department supervise volunteers or CHIMP? So sort of related there. What's just rehash
Yes. So
the relationship there?
So we did branch away from Child Life, and so we are our own standalone program, but we do work side by side a lot with our Child Life team. So we get a lot of the referrals for patients through Child Life. We help them with their equipment and things like that that they facilitate with the kids. But all the stuff that we kind of set up, it all comes through us. All the technology that goes to all the other areas come through us first, and then goes to all the other areas, including Child Life. And they do have their own set of volunteers as well. So we actually have a department called Volunteer Resources. So they take care of all the volunteers in the hospital. And then each of those volunteers go to kind of their direct supervisor. So Child Life, they have their own set of volunteers that are unit volunteers, and they'll do all sorts of activities with the kids, board games or coloring or things like that. And our volunteers are specifically just video games and tech. And obviously, if our volunteers go into a kid's room, they're like, we don't want to play video games right now. I just want to work on this craft. They're not going to be like, oh, see ya. They're still going to hang out with them because the technology piece is, how you get in the door. But once you're in the door and the kid wants you to stay, that's the most important part, is the socialization aspect of it. But yes, our volunteers are mainly tech volunteers. Mainly people are interested in video games and gaming and things like that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, very much so. Another question was the cart that you showed, your updated cart from what you called your 6-inch CRT TV that was back in the day. That was made by you guys, right? Or was that brought in by somebody else or designed by somebody else?
No, we pretty much made that. We had some money from the Starlight Foundation. I think they had like, oh, here's I think a couple of grand. So, spend it on something for your hospital. So we were able to buy the cart itself, because those AV carts are super expensive, and that one, to support a TV that big, I think that was about an $800 cart. And then we were able to buy that 40-inch TV, which is like over 10 years old now, but still fully functioning. So we're not going to replace it. But it's a 40-inch TV, and the kids' jaws still drop when we push that into the room. And the stickers, back then, it was very hard to get like these fun stickers. So we printed them out on waterproof labels and hand cut all those stickers on there. So I had a hand cramp for about 3 days. Yeah, we recycled through the different systems. So when we started, it didn't have the newer systems, but as soon as we get new systems, we take off the old ones, put the new ones on. Yeah, so yeah, we pretty much made that ourselves.
And then looks like maybe last sort of question, other than Alex's TV to pounds conversion tool that he put in there. 40-inch TV weighs 40 pounds. That's great. How much is a 50-inch? Is that 50 pounds? I don't know. Anyway.
Those are heavy, yeah.
Yeah, it can get heavy. Question is, what's your relationship and your department's relationship with your IT team at the hospital?
They know about us, and then they forget about us, and then they're quickly reminded about us again. So most of the time we're okay with getting away with stuff until we need to do a big purchase. Like we got a big grant last year, and we couldn't just use our corporate credit card to buy how many iPads, because it was too much. So we had to go through IT to purchase, and they're like, you're not allowed to buy this, blah, blah, blah. And so we had a big meeting. We're like, no, we know how to take care of our stuff. We're fine. Remember us? They're like, oh yeah, you guys. Okay, you're approved.
I think you just spoke for like hundreds of people. Most people on this symposium being like, I'm submitting to buy this. They're like, you can't. You're like, yes, I can. And here's why. They're like, yes, you can. It's like a Jedi mind trick, basically.
Yeah, hence the advocating constantly for our patients and families. And the network guys on site know who we are, and they're supportive of us, and they even give us like extra codes for the Wi-Fi for our equipment. So it's good to befriend them, but I think the broader IT just because we are provincial wide. So all the really high up IT people may not know who we are, but the frontline people who are on site here, they do know who we are.